What's going on, guys? It's Cimoooooooo. So today I'm bringing to you an updated meta analysis for the August 2019 format. Now, this past weekend, we just had two events come to a conclusion, both the Pro Play Tour event in Philadelphia, as well as the Ultimate Duelist Series Invitational taking place in Indianapolis. And the reason why this is significant is because these are the first two events that really give us a good glimpse as to what the format is going to look like moving forward. And now that we have this established, the meta is going to start to build and evolve and kind of go in the direction that we're going to see here, and there is a lot to discuss as a result of that. So without further ado, let's go ahead and just dive right into it. I want to kick things off with the Pro Play Games Tour event. This was an event that had about 180 players or so in attendance. I was there doing live stream commentary for the event, and it was an awesome experience getting to meet each and every one of you that attended. So shout outs to all of you guys. Let's go ahead and start with the breakdown for the overall event. So as you can see here, we have the pie chart that's going to show you guys every single deck that was at the event. And what's interesting about this is that you see that Pendulum Magician took up like 20% of the field. I mean, that is pretty significant, followed shortly thereafter with decks like Crusadia, Danger, Thunder Dragon, as well as Orcust. Orcust is a deck that not a lot of people had a lot of faith in with the banning of Rusty Bardiche on the last ban list, but is showing that Orcust is still able to compete. You also had some of the other decks in there like Sky Striker, Salomon Gray, and there's also a few other like rogue decks that people weren't expecting, stuff like True King Dinosaur and stuff like that we're going to cover a little bit later on. And I wanted to show you this first just to give you guys a transition point to show the conversion as when the decks had the overall representation to the top cut, so you guys get to see how that transition worked. So without further ado, here's your top 16 breakdown for Pro Play Tour Philadelphia. And this was an extremely diverse top 16, and when it actually goes down into top 8, there was actually 8 different decks that managed to make the top cut. So that was pretty cool to witness, but at the same time, you are going to see some things that look a little bit reminiscent of the previous format, and that is the fact that Crusadia, Danger, Thunder, Guard Dragon is still at the top here, taking up 25% or 4 of the top 16 slots. This really isn't too much of a shocker here. This deck is still very powerful. Again, it did lose some cards on the ban list, but not really enough to hurt the deck enough because you're still able to do all the same Guard Dragon combos the same. The deck is incredibly strong going first or second, being able to break boards with all the extenders that it plays, or just amass boards of stuff like Hieratic, Seal of Heavenly Spheres with Hot Red Dragon, Archfiend Abyss, Thunder Dragon, Colossus. The deck has so much going for it. And while there were a few in top cut, I do have a list here that actually incorporated Rescue Cat. This is actually a top 8 list, the furthest of the tournament, and I just wanted to show you guys that list just because it's kind of cool to see even a card like Rescue Cat can be played in this deck to help just fuel the deck even further and give it some more explosivity. Now, I do want to take the time to mention that if you didn't make it to Pro Play Tour Philadelphia, come down to Pro Play Tour Orlando taking place on September 7th and 8th. This is an incredible opportunity because not only is there $2,000 up for grabs in the prize pool, but if you get your invite, which is just getting into the top cut, you get your invite to the Invitational in January, where there is a $10,000 prize pool up for grabs. Links will be in the description if you want to go pre-register. I'll be there doing commentary and be there for you guys to sign cards, take pictures, and all that, and I really hope to see you guys there. But getting back to the analysis, now when it comes down to it, only one deck can earn the crown, and the winner of Pro Play Tour Philadelphia was in fact Orcust. And when you look at this list, it is a little bit standardized. However, there is the inclusion of the brand new Vishuda in tandem with the Link 110 monster. Vishuda is nice because it allows you to have another special summon. It gives you a monster when you link up into the Link 1, so you have a monster to help facilitate your Orcust combo, and in addition to that, you can banish Vishuda to possibly just bounce something on your opponent's field before you even start into your combo. So it's nice because it allows you to play a little bit better going second, but beyond that, we do see a fairly standard Orcust list here, playing stuff like the Sky Striker engine, give you a little bit of flexibility, a one card, free combo if you absolutely have to use it that way, but you can also search stuff like Eagle Booster to Protector combo. He was actually playing Widow Anchor just to give him some options going second, and then he was also playing Ghost Spell in the main deck. He said he wanted to play DD Crow, but Ghost Spell was the option since he couldn't have access to the Crows, and he said it actually worked fairly well for him. So ultimately, congrats to him, and I hope to see him at the Invitational. I'll definitely have his list and a lot of these other deck lists up on the channel a little bit later this week, so just check around or subscribe if you haven't already to stay tuned for that. Second place, we had Pendulum Magician. There was several Pendulum Magicians in the top 16, as you guys saw, and really isn't much of a surprise here since Pendulum Magician is still a fairly solid deck for what it's worth. I'll have that list for you guys as well. In third place was Burning Abyss Orcust, and this is so cool to see that it's Burning Abyss still in 2019, still able to compete, and it's nice because this deck can do a lot of really cool things. I had the pleasure of watching this man compete in the top cut several times and also featured him on the top 4 feature match as well, and it's Burning Abyss Orcust. I mean, what else is there really to say? The fact you have access to like Cherubini, you just can do some some really neat things to utilizing the Orcust engine, because that's primarily why the deck is so strong. But having the Burning Abyss cards allow you to just have your full Orcust combo, and like a Beatrice in addition to that. You can make stuff like Cherubini to send Farfa to disrupt your opponent's board. It has a lot of really unique tools to it, and I'd highly recommend checking this deck out. And then fourth place, we had a Salamangreat player. Of course, Salamangreat still able to compete, even with one Gazelle and one Circle. The deck is still able to compete quite well. It didn't lose any of its power, just some of its consistency, and the fact that you can play a ton of hand traps to help kind of slow the other decks down to your level, I definitely think is a very good thing. But now I want to transition to the Ultimate Duelist Series Invitational that took place in Indianapolis. Now, for those of you who don't know, this is an event that you actually need to qualify for by earning points, whether you just sign up for events or actually top in certain events to earn the points to have enough to enter into this type of event. So it's not just something you can go into and register anytime. You actually need to have played and done, you know, at least decently well, or played at enough events to actually qualify and attend one of these events. So the skill ceiling is probably higher than even that of maybe say of something like a YCS, just because not only do you have to qualify for it, but you also are playing against some of the best of the best. You have to play like 13 rounds. It's still a relatively small player count. I think this event was only like just over 200, but you're playing against 200 other really skilled players, so the competition is fierce. And I don't have an overall breakdown of this event. They didn't provide any on the Konami blog coverage. However, my friends there told me that the breakdown was primarily comprised of, you know, Danger Thunder variants. There's actually a lot of Pure Thunder variants there as well, a lot of Orcust variants, and Sky Striker. So again, not really too much of a surprise, but here is the top 16 breakdown for that event. And again, this isn't really too shocking here. We see Thunder Dragon taking up the most representation here, which again, we kind of saw that coming. We were predicting this deck was going to continue to carry through into the new format, and it is really showing that it is still the deck to beat, both in the overall main field as well in the top cut field as well. We also have Orcust coming up here in second place. Now this is significant again because a lot of people were counting Orcust out, but Orcust is still very playable. You just have to find your different ways to make the Orcust engine work for you, whether it's a pure variant, whether it's splashing the deck, or excuse me, the engine in a specific deck that can just take advantage of the fact that you can take any two monsters, turn them into a Phoenix or Cerberus, then go Mermaid and just play only a couple cards for your Orcust engine. Seems pretty good, right? And we're going to be showing another deck that took advantage of that that's a little bit different than your traditional Orcust list. Now I want to start off with the deck that took first place at this event, which was Pure Thunder Dragon? Yeah, Pure Thunder Dragon ended up taking first, and I think this is something that shocked everyone. I don't think anyone going into this event or this weekend doing any sort of playing would have known that Pure Thunder Dragon was going to come out, but here it is, and it took first place. Now, this is an interesting call because Pure Thunder Dragon is a deck that we haven't really seen in quite some time, and what's interesting about it is that the Danger Thunder variant seems a lot more explosive, but it does seem more susceptible to certain types of disruption in the form of hand traps, whereas Pure Thunder Dragon doesn't fold in that same way, and that might have been why it was a very good call. And Pure Thunder Dragon never was necessarily a bad deck, it just kind of fell out of favor in relativity to the other decks in the metagame. So moving forward, this might be a deck that you actually need to have on your radar, because now that it got first place at the UDS, there was also other people playing it that didn't top or make it that far, but it was still in the top 16 as well. Pure Thunder Dragon may be making a splash into the metagame. So shout outs to him for getting first place, because I think that is an incredible feat, and honestly, it's just a great way to end an event like that an underdog deck that no one would have saw coming managed to take first place. Now, second place is a completely different story, because while it is an Orcust variant, it is a 55 card Orcust list that's basically like, it almost reminiscent of a Goki list because of all the warrior cards, but it's almost just like Dark Warrior Orcust. And what's cool about this is that, again, it is very reminiscent of Goki because you're trying to just spam the board with a bunch of monsters, but instead of like extra linking your opponent, you're actually hand looping them in a lot of different ways, and also just ending on a full Orcust combo. Also taking advantage of the Gar Dragons as well, because Destrudo is in fact the dragon. You can resurrect it, make its level low enough that you can special summon Elpie, do your full Gar Dragon combo, then go from there into your full Orcust combo, and like I said, loop some cards out of your opponent's hand in the process. This deck seems absolutely wild to me, and it's really cool to see that a deck like this got second place. Now, coming in third place is none other than DZ himself, piloting Altergeist, and just going to show that even with a single multi-faker, Altergeist is actually still capable of competing. A very interesting meta call here. He did play the Sandgan to try to search it, but he said he didn't really like it too much, but it got him to top 4, so it couldn't have really been that bad. He still had plenty of other ways to access it through stuff like personal spoofing, Meluseek, different things like that, but this might have been an interesting meta call because people might have been so focused on the combo decks being the much bigger decks like Crusadia Danger, Thunder Dragon, and everything else that was in the meta. They might not have been focusing on the control decks as much, so players might not have been adequately equipped to deal with this type of deck. There was definitely a lack of red reboot, you know, maybe evenly matched wasn't being played as much. I saw it in a couple side decks, but not as many as we've seen in the past. It definitely is by no means a staple in the side deck anymore, so honestly, it's not too bad. And the fact that he got third place, congrats to him, I think that's pretty awesome. And then fourth place was a Sky Striker list. There's plenty of Striker, of course, but I wanted to just show the highest one, just to give you guys a lot of variety here. And Striker, again, it's Sky Striker, really no surprise that it's here. This is kind of like what the list was looking like going into this event, and it's pretty cool to see that Sky Striker is still able to compete. And if there's one other deck I do want to discuss in this meta analysis before wrapping things up, is that there was a Witchcrafter deck at the UDS that managed to get day 2, which means it almost actually made it into Top Cut, which is absurd to me. Witchcrafter, a deck that no one had any faith in whatsoever, and it made it to the top 64 of one of the most prestigious events of the year. I think that is absolutely wild. So big shout outs to that guy. I've got the list here to show you guys, and you should definitely check out that deck profile because this is quite a deck to witness. Overall though, I think if there's one thing to surmise from this entire meta analysis is that even though we do have the decks that are still primarily taking up the top of the metagame here, your Crusadia Danger Thunder Dragons, your Orcus, your Sky Strikers, they're starting to solidify themselves as the top contenders. There's still a wide open metagame here. I showed you guys like 10 different decks that managed to make the top cuts of these events, and there were still plenty of others that I didn't even get to showcase because there isn't enough time to do so. Go ahead and check out on Carlancho Store, which I got all these graphics from, shoutouts to them, to see all the different decks that did top. You can also check out the Pro Play Games Facebook page as well for all the lists there, and even just on going on YouTube and searching for these lists, there were tons of different decks in attendance at both of these events. I think YCS Portland is going to be very interesting because I don't think necessarily anything is solved. I still think we're in a fairly open metagame with some decks moving towards the top, but there is still a lot that can happen. So guys, those are just my thoughts. Let me know down in the comments what you guys think about this meta analysis. I'd really love to hear your thoughts. Thank you so much for watching the video. Be sure to like the video as always. Subscribe to the channel for more amazing Yu-Gi-Oh content. And if you found this video informative, consider supporting me on Patreon or becoming a YouTube channel member. Because just by showing your support in any way that you can, you're investing in my ability to continue bringing you amazing Yu-Gi-Oh content. So thanks so much again, and we'll see you next time.